venture going to present you an interesting KEP on negotiations. Please pay kind attention to this session as it will be helpful for the Soccerscape event later this day. I'll try to make the KEP interesting and practical and not make it a type of lecture given by a professor. So let's get started. What comes to our mind when we first hear the word negotiation? Maybe we think of us bargaining with the shopkeeper while shopping, or the pitchers negotiating with the sharks for investment and expertise and other kind of help. On a deep thought, we see that negotiations are the part and parcel of life. Like giving you some examples, when we were young, we used to have a deal with our mother for allowing us to play for so much time, sleep for so much time, and blah blah blah. And another example is you demanding extra marks to the TAs or lecturer. So negotiations exist everywhere. We'll be basically focusing on financial or monetary negotiation in this KEP. Okay, next. Uh, okay, so now let's look at the formal definition of KEP of negotiation. Negotiation takes place when two or more people. So usually it's two parties like the parents versus child or the TAs versus the student. So when two or more people with differing views come together, okay, differing views. So the views also might differ. Like the child's perspective is to chill, relax, enjoy his life, his or her life, and parents' view is that they fear that the child might ruin his life or spoil his studies. So views may be different of the negotiating parties, but when they come together to attempt to reach an agreement on a common issue, so they get a common agreement, and this negotiation is persuasive communication or bargaining. Okay, next. Another definition says negotiation is about getting the best possible deal in the best possible way. I am stressing here on the term best possible way because as a businessman, it's very important to maintain some professionalism and some standards during negotiating. It should be like kill the snake without breaking the stick. As a businessman, you need to maintain politeness, be logical in your demands, convince the other party in a quite friendly way, not be rude or harsh to anyone. So these things should be kept in mind. Next. Yeah. So different authors have given their views on negotiation. Next. The first one is of Bill Scott, who says negotiation is a form of meeting between two different parties, our parties and other parties. This should be quite clear. And J.A. Wall has to say negotiation is a process in which two or more parties exchange goods or services and they agree on a exchange rate. So this definition fits best for the case of us bargaining with the shopkeeper. Here we bargain for the goods, nothing but the product, and then an exchange rate or the selling price is being agreed upon or bargained upon. And back please. Winston's advanced dictionary says the discussions and bargaining that goes on between parties before a contract is settled or deal is agreed upon. So this should be quite clear. Next. Okay, I'll give you some examples in the professional world of negotiation. Uh, so when an employee gets selected or recruited by an employer, the employer gives offers him a salary. The employee may or may not agree to it, and if he is not satisfied, he may kindly request the employer to consider increasing the salary. So this is a kind of negotiation. Uh, Once all this is done and the employee is selected, there's a formal union contract signed between both the parties, which encloses all the terms and the work conditions that exist. So such a contract is called union contract. So this is also a form of negotiation. After the employee steps into the organization, he might require some kind of leave or vacation. He has to cite the reasons for such a leave to the employer in the form of negotiation. And if at all the employee wants to leave the organization, he has to uh, you know, get a contract signed from the employer that includes some monetary and claims settlement, other legal ethical clauses. So these all things are covered in the terms of separation, which also involves negotiation. So in the job world, negotiations are common, and you can find many more examples which you can explore later. Next. Okay. So there are four basic P's that influence negotiation. It is good if we understand these terms in in terms of our Soccerscape event. As you would be knowing, this event is basically about you being a football club owner. You need to form a strong team, and you can trade in the sense buy or sell players from or to other clubs. So with this scenario in mind, let's get on to the first P, problem. So problem is basically the reason and the root cause for you to have such a negotiation. uh, so just consider you are a football club owner and you need a player from the other club. So this becomes the problem statement for you. Or maybe you're in shortage of money, so you go out for selling few players. So that is also another problem statement. So you need to find out the problem statement and what are the shortcomings and the needs of your party. After you do that, it is equally important to think from the other persons in the sense the party with which you're negotiating. You need to understand how the deal will affect him, and you need to stand amongst the other party and look at the negotiation at their perspective. Once all this is done, you need to prepare a solution for the problem. In the sense, like say, if you want to buy a player from the other party, what is the least and the most amount of money you can spend on the player? So you need to chart out that range and prepare it tentatively. This process is basically logically structuring the negotiation. Next. Okay. And you need to look at the problems. Once you understand the problem, you need to look at it from all the angles and look from your perspective, from the other party's perspective, and then move on to starting negotiation. Without doing such a preparation, it will lead you to total failure. Next. Coming to the next P, which is nothing but process, this is the phase wherein you execute your strategies. It starts with an offer, then a counter offer, then counter offer, and finally this goes on till both the parties come to an agreement. Here it is very vital that we explain stuff clearly and properly to the opposite party. Now you need to, for example, if you need to buy a player from the other club, you need to give proper reasons as to why do you need that particular player, and what benefits will the other party get, and so on. Out of all, what sits at the top is the relationship. Relationship we hold with and that we want to continue with the party. No, since the football tournament happens year on year, spoiling relationship with other clubs and other teams just because of a few deals, few meager one or two deals, would put the very future of the club at stake. The same thing happens in all the negotiations elsewhere. Relationships should be kept at the top of everything. Just take an example that a regular customer wants some goods from the shopkeeper, and if and that regular customer is bargaining for that product, an unsensible behavior from the side of the shopkeeper might lose the shopkeeper an invaluable customer. Just because of few meager rupees or cents, the customer is going to lose his the shopkeeper is going to lose his customer, which is very bad for the shopkeeper. And another thing to note is things may not go along as we plan. There may be few changes in the course of our negotiation process. Like for example, if we plan to buy a player from other club for cash, we may not end up buying him in cash. Instead, the exchange may be for a player or two from our side. So we must be prepared for all this. Next. Okay, so the next P is people. People basically comprises our team plus other team. People, their views, feelings, etc., play a very great role. As you all know, people are of varying facets: polite to harsh, kind to stubborn, sensible to senseless. We need to adapt and tackle all kinds of people If we get the knack of dealing with all kinds of people, we are the supreme negotiators. If Next slide. If negotiation doesn't happen very smoothly and conveniently, then that may end up in failure. That should be avoided. And cultural differences is another thing we need to keep in mind. Since globe is very vast, cultural differences also are wide apart, and we need to keep them in mind. If we try to negotiate in a style that does not fit the other party, then the negotiations can have many loopholes and potholes which we don't want. So that also, people also play a very strong part in negotiation. Next slide. And last but not the least, the P is nothing but parameters. Parameters are the boundaries that affect decisions. These parameters are usually straightforward, but they are very impactful. In the case of football trading, the parameters can be cash in hand or and current team strength. If a team has enough cash, then they won't care to spend more on valuable players. On the other hand, if the team has less cash, they have a tight upper limit set on the money to be spent. Sometimes they may need to spend some sale some valuable players out. And another thing, important thing is the team has to find out what parameter is a limiting factor. In the sense, uh, is in the case of a football trading, is money limiting or are the players limiting? So let's look at this with some example. Let's say a team or a football club has $20 million. They need five good players, and assuming that getting one good player costs $5 million, so getting five good players costs 5 into 5, $25 million. But the club has only $20 million, which means what is the limiting factor? It is cash or money. Second is second scenario that we can see is, suppose a club has $100 million and they need say seven good players. Uh, and assume the same cost for average cost of a player, which is $5 million. So the club has to spend on an average 5 into 7, $35 million on getting seven good players, but they have $100 million. So that means that cash is not the limiting factor, players are the limiting factor here. Next slide, please. Yeah. So once done with the four P's, now let's look at what are the factors affecting negotiation. First and foremost is the place. Place in the sense, how does place affect? Familiarity with surrounding helps us in boosting confidence. If we understand the place, its environment very well, then we can will be in a positive mood and optimistic for any kind of deal or negotiations. So that also plays a key role. Coming to time, negotiating requires time. It's not just a minute's job. It requires careful thinking and decision making. Hasty negotiation may spoil the game of both the parties, not just one party, both the parties. On the other side, if one party takes too much time to respond and negotiate, then the other party may lose patience. They may feel bored. They may not ease their demand, or in the worst case, they may even cancel the deal or the negotiation. So, an optimum timed negotiation is required. Attitude, both the parties should be optimistic and flexible in attitude. Even if one party is not considerate or flexible, the negotiation may take a totally different route. In such a case, the solution is for the other party to somehow convince the former party to get to a common decision. And convincing such inflexible people is quite difficult. And here, a caution note is, personal emotions, feelings, ego, enmity must not surface up. Remember, it's a team negotiation, team task. Personal attitude should not come up here. And for example, say the team leader thinks that he's supreme, he's smart, intelligent, and he can negotiate and handle the stuff by himself. It will be devastating for the team, which should be avoided. It should be a team task. Next is subjective factors. Relationship is a subjective factor. Like better the relationship, the faster and fairer the negotiation. Status difference. Status difference. Here in the case of football trading, Soccerscape event, it refers to the financial and team status difference between the two clubs. So such a difference plays a key role in negotiation. Okay, next. Yeah, so this is the crucial part, the five stages of a negotiation process. Next. So the five stages are the common stages found in almost all the negotiations, although some variations are possible. The first stage is preparation stage. So preparation stage basically comprises of the ground and the research work to be done by the party from on the both sides, like from his side and on the other side as well, and they need to prepare a solution in mind. As already told before, they need to determine where, how, and at what constraints the negotiations will take place. And adding to this, they need to decide, for example, if we take the example of the event, uh, the club needs to decide whether the exchange would be for cash or for players. If for players, how many players? And then they also need to decide like who will efficiently negotiate for the club, who is good at it, and they need to choose him and assign him the role of negotiating. So for an example, let's assume that team club Bayern wants two players from Barcelona, and so Bayern has to do a groundwork of Barcelona as well as the Bayern itself. And they need, suppose they decide that they can buy uh, the two players each for 7 million, 6 million to $8 million. So that is the case study in the first stage. Next. Yeah. So exchanging information. So once the preparation is done, the exchanging of information takes place from the initiating size. Initiating side. So here, Bayern places a demand to Barcelona that they want two players, and they cite the reasons that why do they need two players and what is the need for it. And so this is basically exchanging of information. After this comes the next stage. Next, please. The next stage is clarify. Here, both the parties cross verify the feasibility of the offer and the counter offer offered to them. The team decides whether to accept the offer or withdraw from the deal or prepare a counter offer. Uh, Also, facts and claims made by the counterparty are verified. So, coming to our example, when Bayern places a demand for two players, Barcelona research like verifies that what is the need for Bayern to buy two players, and whether it is feasible for them to give the two players off. And they prepare a report, and then maybe they prepare a initial offer. Let us assume that they agree to trade off only one player, not both the players, only one player for $10 million. Next, please. So next stage is bargaining stage. So this is the main epicenter of negotiation. After the first offer, the other party would give an counter offer, and the former party would again make a counter offer. This may go on for a few finite steps. Uh, okay, as already mentioned, emotions, especially personal emotions, must be kept in check, and communications also play a crucial role for in this stage. That's why it's very important to choose a highly communicate skilled highly skilled in communication negotiator, because there has to be clarity of statements declared. There should be understanding of others. There should be patient listening. Calm feedback is required. Proper body language. So these are the characteristics required of the negotiator. So, coming to our example, uh, like Barcelona has made an offer of $10 million, and Bayer may place a counter of $6 million. Barcelona then again thinks and says it can come down to $9 million. Bain again counters it by offering $7 million. but still Barcelona remains at $9 million. So this was all the sequence of bargaining and negotiation that happened. And next, last and the final stage is conclude and implement. After all the bargainings and negotiations, a deal or no deal is made. So reacting to the last and the final offer of Barcelona, if Bayern agrees to buy the player for $9 million, it will be a deal for Bayern. Or if Bayern withdraws from the deal, it will be a no deal. So both the situations are possible. Whether it is a deal or no deal, a good deal or a bad deal, both the sides must thank each other and seek leave. Maintaining good relationships for long term are crucial. Later, there'll be a written contract and other formalities after the verbal agreement is done. So that is nothing but implementation part. If we take our example, after the deal is struck, the formalities for the transfer of the players, all that formalities which are required, those formalities are done as a part of implementation. Next. Yeah. So results, so after the negotiation, there are many combinations of results possible. One can be loss-loss situation. Loss-loss situation is wherein both the parties are at loss. So assume a player is being transferred from club X to club Y. If the player is a very valuable player, so X has lost a very valuable player. And if the deal was for a huge amount of money, the loss for Y is like shortage of cash. So it is a loss-loss situation for both, and win lose situation. Herein, one party is at advantage while the other is at disadvantage. For example, a very good player is being sold from X to Y for just a meager amount of money. So it's a loss of X because the player was very valuable for X, and it is a win for Y because he got a good player and for a small amount of money. So here you can see win-lose situation. The third situation that can arise is draw situation, wherein both the parties aren't affected. This can be the case when the negotiation ends up in no deal, like no player is being transferred from any team to any other team, and yeah, so it's a draw situation. And last situation is win-win situation, wherein both the parties go home happily. Okay, so what can be the situation? Okay, let us assume that a player is being transferred from X to Y in exchange for a player back from Y to X. And such a transfer is affecting both the teams. So this is a win-win situation. Next. Okay, so there are some guidelines and no to-dos to be followed while negotiating. Next. Positive attitude. This is the most important characteristic required. Like we need to be positive from the very beginning, have the confidence that we can turn the tables on our side. And the debate should be narrow and precise debates. We must see to it that we don't have a prolonged debate with the other side. A few strong points will support our stand, and that's enough. Step by step approach. As already mentioned, it is good if we follow the step by step approach, 5 stage approach, wherein the first there will be a research from the initiating side, and demand will be placed to the other side. The other side would give an initial offer followed by a counter offer, and so on. And don't offer anything before you get a counter. This is of utmost importance. Doing this says that we are desperate for the deal and the other side will take advantage of us. We may get a very poor offer later. Understanding other parties' mindset is also equally important. Understanding their behavior pattern, their likes and dislikes, etc. Next. Yeah. So keep your deadlines secret. Don't ever disclose them. Deadlines here refer to what are the worst case and best case limits for us. What is the worst possible deal and best possible deal for us. So those secrets should be kept within our team. Think before you speak. Think thrice, in fact, before you make a single choice. Uh, uh, since being a professional and a businessman, it is very difficult to revert our decisions. A decision made cannot be reverted easily. So think thrice before you make a choice. Know the market info. Understand the market trends very well. So, as far as the event is concerned, football is a market. We must have a thorough understanding of the strengths of each club. What are the needs and requirements? Who are the emerging and the experienced players, etc. And last tip is bring your own expert. You can take help of you can take help of an experienced, trustworthy expert to guide you to the negotiations. Although this is not advice for the event, you can do this for your future undertakings. So that is all I have to say about the art of negotiation. I hope you enjoy the session and apologize me for any mistakes from my side. Now wait, don't leave. My friend Shuvro would be throwing light on the Soccerscape event and its rules. Over to Shuvro.
Thank you, Rakshith, for an wonderful intro on the negotiation. And I hope, guys, it will help you to improve your negotiation skills. I'm Shuvro Ghosh, second year Triple E department, and I'm here to make you familiarize with the rules of this KEP. So, the first rule, the transfer window will be open from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. On 22nd February 2022. And in each team, there will have four members, and the teams will be allowed to trade players, offer players, and make an offer for an opposing players in the transfer window. The fourth rule, a deal for a player may involve only players from one's own team and or transfer funds. All wages mentioned on the sheet are weekly based. Teams will be paying their existing players the current contract for the next 5 years. Let me explain this rule through an example. Suppose a player has a wage of 100, then the current cost of the team is 100 per week into 52 weeks a year into 5 years, that is 100 into 260, that is 26,000. All the negotiation must be done with the members of the concert players team members. Suppose a deal is struck amongst the teams, then the player will be transferred over. Additionally, the existing contract of the player is handed over to the buying team. The contract cost is thus deducted from the buying team's fund and is added to the selling team's fund. Let me explain you the situation again through an example. Suppose a player playing for team A has a wage of 100 and is sold to another team B for 10,000. Then the total cost for team B is 10,000 plus 100 into 5 into 52 weeks in a year, that is 10,000 plus 26,000, that is equals to 36,000, which the whole thing will be added to team's A fund. At the end of the window, the teams must have a minimum of 22 players. By 6 p.m., the teams must submit an 11-man starting lineup and an 11-man backup lineup. The lineups must consist of three attackers, three midfielders, four defenders, and one goalkeeper. Players must may be played. Players may be played out of position. Example: suppose a midfielder, according to the team, has good enough stats to play as an attacker or a defender, then it would be allowed. All the stats on the sheet are out of 20. What are these later means? A is the average stat of the attackers. M is of the midfield, D is of the defense, and GK is of the goalkeeper. Now, team finishing F is not like making you clear about this is the average team finishing F. What's this? What is actually this is denoting? This is basically denoting that is zero point 0.6 into A plus zero point 0.3 into M plus zero point 0.1 into D. Now, what is A here? A is the average of the finishing of the attackers. M is the average of the finishing of the midfielders. D is the average of the finishing of the defense. In the same way, average team heading will be zero point 0.4 into A plus zero point 0.2 into M plus zero point 0.4 into D. The denotation will be same as the average team finishing. I mean, A will be the average average heading attackers, M will be the average heading midfielders, and D will be average heading defense. Team average team passing P, that is equals to zero point 0.2 into A plus zero point 0.7 into M plus zero point 0.1 into D. Team crossing C, that is equals to zero point 0.4 into A plus zero point 0.2 into M plus zero point 0.4 into D. Now, average team positioning P naught, that is PO, that is equals to GK, I mean goalkeeper. Team reflexes, RE, that is also equals to goalkeeper. Team tackling, T, that is being denoted by T, that is equals to zero point 0.1 into A plus zero point 0.2 into M plus zero point 0.7 into D. The notation will be same. Attacking rating. Attacking rating equals to H into C plus F into P divided by C plus P. What is H? You can see H is average team heading. Can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah. Average team heading. I mean, you will be putting this value plus, into C. C will be average team crossing plus F into P. F is average team finishing from the previous slide into P, average team passing divided by C plus P. I mean team crossing plus team passing. What is defense rating? Defense rating equals to T plus H divided by 2. T is team tackling. H will be team heading divided by 2. GK rating, I mean the goalkeeper rating. Goalkeeper rating will be team positioning plus team reflexes divided by 2. Now, the total rating will be equals to attacking rating plus defensive rating plus GK rating. And what will be the money rating? Money rating equals to remaining transfer funds divided by 150C. And the team rating equals to starting into zero point 0.7 plus backup into zero point 0.3 plus money rating. And finally, the team with the best team ratings will be declared as the winner. Wish you best of luck for the event.